Hello and welcome into another episode of Real Toolbox Review. I'm your host, Nate. Today we're going to do our first ever episode of Worth It, where I'm going to tell you about a tool purchase that I made some time ago. And it's usually going to be in excess of $500. And usually we're going to review tools that I've owned for at least 1 year or more. Today we're going to be reviewing the Makita Cordless Cooler. The model number is DCW180Z. All right, let's get after it. It's time for another Real Toolbox review. All right, welcome back in. Again, today we're going to be looking at this Makita cooler, model number DCW180Z. And this is both a cordless cooler and heater. We'll get into that. I purchased this I think about 13 months ago. Ordered it directly from Makita through a tool vendor. And I paid $699 at the time of purchase. Now, since I purchased it, the price for some reason on this exact model has gone up $125 to $824, which is the price that is currently listed on most tool sites at this time of recording. It is sold only as a bare tool. It is not sold as a kit that I'm aware of. It does take 2 of the LXT batteries in this chamber right here, and it can run on 1 LXT battery. I did purchase this with my own money. We will not be posting an affiliate link because the prices on Amazon are astronomical for this. This is a very hard tool to get. Usually you have to order it directly from Makita US. So just in terms of the dimensions, it stands about 16.5 feet tall and 26 inches wide. And I'll also show you the dimensions of the inside here. To open this, there's just a little clip here and it opens right up. The batteries are stored on the side here, and there is in the very, very back, and you'll see kind of some blurry video of this. There's a USB charging port that you can charge any cordless device. In total, it has 4 preset cooling modes. So it has a 15, a 30, a 40, and a 50 degree Fahrenheit cooling temperature, and then it has 2 warming modes as well of 130 and 140 degrees. So you can do either. On the front here, it has a small LCD screen that shows the temperature, and it does come with these wheels as well. It came pre-assembled. You do not have to assemble this. I pretty much pulled it out of the box and it was ready to go. This cooler with 2 batteries weighs about 32 pounds, and that is with this chamber empty. Obviously, if you added water bottles or anything like that, it would weigh more. It has a total capacity of 20 liters inside the cool container. And the cool thing too is that it can be powered by the LXT batteries. It also can be powered by AC/DC power, and also by your car charger, so one of the cigarette lighter chargers as well. So there are multiple different ways you can charge and power this in an automobile. It's rated as IPX4, which I looked that up. It essentially means that it can take splashes of water, minimal dust, but it can survive basically a job site. I will say from using this, it is very, very well sealed. So if you had to leave it out in the dust or a dusty job site, I really don't see any issues with this going on. The battery life per Makita, it is supposed to run off of 2 of their 6 amp hour batteries, which are kind of hard to find. And the runtime that it has for cooling is 17 hours at the 40 degree mode and 5 hours at the 15 degree mode. We will test both of those presets. They did not list anything for the warm settings, so we did not test that. To operate the cooler, it's very, very simple. You will just need Makita LXT batteries. They do have other models that you could probably purchase overseas that can take both the LXT and the NXT batteries. This one only takes these. So you just simply open this little crate and you put the batteries in. And once those are in, you hit the power button and there will be a flashing temperature on the front, and these are the preset modules that you will select. So there's, as I mentioned to you before, there's 50, 40, 30, 25, and 15 degree settings on this model. To get to heat, you just double click and it will go onto the heat mode. This also can read out in Celsius and Fahrenheit if for any reason you wanted to change that as well. But the operation of this is insanely simple. And it can run also off of one battery, which is pretty cool as well. So if you needed to use this for a power tool or something else, you could easily do that. You could also take this out, charge it, and then put it back in, and you're ready to go. All right, to test this cooler, I did 3 separate tests. I did 2 torture tests and essentially 1 kind of regular test. The first test that you'll see video of is I actually put this in my garage with all the windows closed. And when all the windows are closed, the temperature gets really hot in there. It is in the sun pretty much all day. So the structure, when we measured the temperature inside, was about 100 degrees. And we ran this on 2 fully charged 6 amp hour batteries in that scenario. In total, the timer actually fell off the table, so you will not see a time reading, but we got 7.5 hours runtime at 15 degrees setting in that setup. Now, again, that was an extreme condition, and this condenser really had to work to keep that 15 degree temperature, but a pretty good runtime and slightly above what Makita said. Their claim was that you could get about 5 hours of runtime at the 15 degree setting. So in that marker, it actually did a little bit better than what Makita could claim. Next, what we did is I actually gave it a really severe torture test. It was about 2 days after the recording of the first test. We had one of our hottest days here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I actually left this out in the sun, again, with 2 fully charged batteries, with the assignment of having it cool to 15 degrees. In this case, the heat was just too much to bear. And again, another issue here, you can see the time, you cannot see the batteries draining. And the reason for that is it was so hot inside of the, not inside, outside on the pavement that the camera would have overheated. So I actually had to put the camera underneath my truck bed to make sure that it was shaded. But again, this was an extreme test for it. In the end, it only lasted about 3.5 hours, and in the final reading that it got was about 52 degrees on here, and it ended up cooling the bottles of water that were inside of it to about 55 degrees. So it was a really hard test for it. You know, Makita said you could get 5 hours of runtime at the 15 degree mark. I don't think that they included if it was, I think it was like 122 degrees on the pavement. So that was an extreme test. And the numbers, again, if you just left it out in the sun, that's what you would get from this for runtime. And in our last test, I wanted to test Makita's claim that you could get 17 hours of runtime at the 40 degree setting. So what I did is I filled this with about 8 of these 1 liter bottles of water. And I tried to see if we could actually get it to cool to 40 degrees and how long that would be. The temperature that day was around 80 degrees, so it wasn't super hot, and this was in the shade for most of the test. In total, in the end, we got about around 10 to 11 hours of runtime doing this test, which is far below the 17-hour claim. And I had 2 fully charged 6 amp hour batteries. Now, I will say that also we did not open the chamber at any time. So we never opened it up to take out water bottles. And obviously, if you had this on a job site or you had this at an event, people would be opening it constantly, which would throw off the temperature and cause the condenser to run more. So a pretty ideal setting and a pretty normal setting, and it fell below the standard of what Makita claimed. And again, we used 2 fully charged batteries to run this test and got this time. So here's the time lapse. You see the time lapse footage kind of intermingled here. Pretty average, and from my experience, usually we get about 8 to 9 hours on this, and that's kind of what it is. That's usually a full day for us. So yeah, those are the testing results. All right, now moving into hate, love, and all the above, and starting off with hate. The biggest thing that I did not like about this cooler is the cost. $699 was a lot of money for a basically unproven and very new product to pretty much the tool world and the cordless tool world. So I didn't like that about it, but it was serving a very specific purpose for me, which was getting rid of ice. I buy a ton of ice as a contractor, especially when I have subcontractors working at sites. I was buying just a ton of ice. It was close to like $30 to $40 a day. This basically made up for 1 month, so I said, hey, this could possibly balance out. The other thing that I did not like about this is the runtime. I know we tested that, but we generally got about 8 to 9 hours. There was one thing, it was kind of twofold, is that when we put it in our vans, or if I had it in like the back of my car, it tended to do really funny stuff, and it tended to drain the battery extremely quickly. And the only way I could really possibly explain that is that the condenser had to work overtime because it just was getting bobbled around and it didn't know what to do. But we usually would lose a single battery driving probably about 30 to 40 minutes. And then of course we would charge one and put one back in. So the runtime, if you just have 2 batteries and that's it, it's not great. If you have multiple batteries, if you're on the LXT platform like I am, you can kind of recharge things and keep it going all day. The size of this is just not that great. It fits the Costco liter bottles really well. Other stuff can really occupy a lot of space. So that kind of ties back to the price comment. If you're gonna buy this for now $824, when you compare it to a traditional cooler that can keep ice cold and frozen for days at a time in some cases, it really doesn't match up in that way. Now that being said, being cordless obviously is a huge advantage, and active cooling is also another advantage, but the size and the quantity that you can fit in here is just really not that great. And lastly, the last thing that I did not like about this is that when things are directly touching the walls of the cooling chamber, they tend to freeze. So I gave this to my in-laws and my wife. They went out on a picnic one day and I said, hey, try this out. And they put food directly into the chamber, as you'd think you could do, and it actually froze the food at 40 degrees. So what I usually recommend people do, specifically at the bottom of the chamber, is put some bottled waters or something to kind of be a barrier, and let the rest of it cool, because it will freeze things in the cooling setting, because it is continually trying to get the air inside of here to actually cool. So it does freeze stuff. It never froze really waters on us, because we usually kept it at 40 degrees, which is a typical refrigerator temperature. But yeah, that's the stuff I didn't like. For all the above, really, there's a couple things. One is the light. The light's good, not great. It's nice to have. If you have this cooler absolutely packed to the brim with stuff, it tends to not show up. But again, most of the time we had bottled waters, which are clear. So this light did okay. The other thing is the wheels. The wheels are pretty small. If you look at other coolers, they're kind of standard size, but if you're dragging this through a job site, which I was on multiple occasions on gravel or in mud, you're essentially just pulling it. So a lot of times I wouldn't even roll this, I'd end up carrying it, which brings me to my next point, which is the weight. 32 pounds is pretty heavy. For me, it's not that bad. I always found this pretty easy to pick up. But again, the weight can be pretty substantial, especially if you have this loaded full of stuff. It's something that's not bad, but it's not good. It's just kind of in the middle. And now lastly, what did I absolutely love about this? Well, first and foremost is the convenience. As I mentioned before, I was burning a lot of money on just bags of ice every day. I'd have to purchase 4 or 5 bags of ice and kind of divvy them up between job sites. This, for at least me and for whoever was working with me, took that out of the equation. And a cordless cooler is pretty cool. Cordless anything is cool, right? So that was something that was really positive for me. The other thing that I did like is the ease of use. You didn't have to really explain this to anyone. It's pretty self-explanatory. You put the batteries in and go. There's very little training involved in it. And I thought the capacity for me worked, but when it was me plus one person, it didn't. So for me personally, not only have I taken this to job sites, I've taken this to concerts and to sporting events and a bunch of other stuff, and it's really been a cool thing to have. The last thing that I really liked about it was the ability just to run on one battery. With a something like this that has a condenser that could be pulling a little bit higher voltage. Makita did a lot of engineering to figure this out to get it to where you can just have one battery running. So technically, you can have this continuously running. The way we tested it was just if you have 2 batteries and you plop them both in and let it run. But you can actually keep this running all day and keep things cool all day. I would say generally for quantity wise, if it was me and one other person, we could each fit our lunch inside of this, plus then some bottles of water that we'd continuously drop them in throughout the day. And it does hold temperature very, very steady. So if you have it at the 40-degree setting, as you saw in the time lapses for testing, it kind of keeps it close to 40. It might go a little below or it might go a little bit above, but it's runs fairly smartly. It's not just continuously running all day. Obviously the run times would be terrible then. But overall, you know, like I did like this, despite the fact there are a lot of inconveniences attached to it. So just to kind of wrap stuff up here, the first thing, Pro or Joe, we always talk about that. Is this for a pro user or is this more of a DIY product? I really have no earthly idea. I think it can be used in both areas. If you're a person that goes to a lot of events and you want to just have something other than a normal cooler, go for this. I guess it's very, very expensive, but I could also see a lot of pro users really benefiting from this, especially if you're at a job site that does not have power, that does not, maybe you have only one outlet, right? We've all been in that situation. This can help you have cool lunch, and it can heat too. We didn't test heating because it's kind of an odd function. But I really am divided. I think this could be used by a wide variety of people outside of the professional realm. So for Pro or Joe, I really don't know. And kind of my final thoughts, is this going to be Tool Dude recommended? As of right now, no. And the reason is that it is a very, very expensive tool for a very, very niche need. And I don't think they've quite figured it out yet. I think this is just like the first version that Makita did. They'll have hopefully versions down the line. Of course, Ryobi has one. There's a bunch of solar companies that make cordless coolers. So there's other options out there. This one is kind of, at this point, a little bit antiquated from what I've seen from some of the solar brands, but it runs on power tool batteries that I use every day. So it's a kind of an interesting thing. And obviously I believed in it enough to purchase it, but I cannot give it the stamp of Tool Dude recommended. And in terms of just kind of final thoughts on this, you know, it needs to be improved. Makita is going through stuff. They're going to continue to develop tools. They're going to continue to put time and energy into research and development. If they redid this, I'd really want to know what they did. And I'd actually like to see the NXT version of this, because I think the run times would be more extensive and it could possibly be more efficient product as well. But all in all, you know, would I repurchase this if I could go back? And the big question, right, was it worth it? Unfortunately, it really wasn't. And the reason is because of some of the drawbacks with the runtime, with it freezing food, with, you know, it's chewing up batteries when we drove it in the car. There's just some things that are going on with this that don't quite make it a great product now, right? This is only version 1. So there'll be hopefully different versions down the road, and maybe it'll get better in the future. But if I could go back and withhold this purchase, I probably would. I probably would still be purchasing ice, but you know, you can't go back and you can't change the past. So this is here and now. But that's kind of where I'm at with this product today. All right, well, that's it for this episode of Real Toolbox Reviews. Thank you so much for watching. Really awesome first worth it episode. I'm going to have more episodes upcoming where we look back at major purchases that I've made, like this one, and see, you know, ultimately, was it worth it? Did it end up panning out? Because that's a really good way to look at valuable purchases. But again, I appreciate everyone that's watching and everyone that has subscribed. Welcome to RTR Nation. We've got some really cool stuff upcoming for that. And if you can, hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate it. We are growing this channel slowly, and I appreciate each and every person that subscribes now and into the future. And we will be posting at our first 100 subscribers. We will do a giveaway. So I'm going to figure that out. So again, if you can hit the subscribe button, awesome. If you really like this video, give me the thumbs up, because that helps me know what's working and what's not. And lastly, if you want to hit the bell icon, you can be notified of any and all future videos that we have, which again, I've been saying it over and over again. We're gonna have some cool tools, boy, I can't talk, upcoming, and that you can take that in and get notified when they come out. But again, I appreciate everyone. I appreciate all of you in RTR Nation. Be safe, stay well, and be kind to others. That's it for now. Bye.